Many things are still a baffling mystery in our world. Science doesn't quite yet have all the answers or all the keys to unlock the secrets of our universe. Every day, somewhere, someone sees something they can't explain. Something that we're told is not there, is not real, or simply doesn't exist. Too many reliable people tell of sightings and encounters with the unknown. The myths, legends, folklore, and old wives' tales are usually based in fact and in reality. When a witness to such a strange encounter finds no one believes them and faces ridicule from people they trust and love, they turn to us, the Alabama Bigfoot Society.
And now, from the tail end of the Appalachian mountain chain in the heart of the South, this is Alabama Adventures. Today, Slewfoot has put in a long, hard day at the sawmill. He's about to make the same uneventful journey home he makes every day. All that's on his mind right now is that hot supper-time meal that his wife has prepared for him that'll be sitting on the table when he walks in the door. But by now, I bet you've already guessed, this afternoon things will be a little bit different. For today, Slewfoot must pass through the shadow regions where reality and the supernatural mingle.
Scattered throughout Alabama and our world as well, there are places that hold strange, unknown powers and secrets. Some of us have been fortunate enough, or perhaps unfortunate enough, to encounter these places. They are mystical, magical, perhaps enchanted, and sometimes cursed. They are known as vortexes, portals, doorways, passageways to other worlds and to other dimensions. Sometimes the times in the past are the times of the future. For the most part, they lay hidden, lurking deep in the shadows. So ask yourself before you make this journey tonight, can I handle the truth? But once you find the truth, your life is forever changed. You are now about to cross into the shadow regions where reality and the supernatural mingle.
Well, hello once again and welcome to tonight's Alabama Adventure. Tonight we go on a little story of a little folklore in this area, a little something that happened many years ago. I'm not exactly sure when it did happen. I think it was the 1940s or maybe early 1950s. Alrighty, here we go, and as I always do, I like to set a little background so you'll kind of know what the story is about and get the setting going just right, and that's what I'll try to do real quick. What I'm going to be talking about is a place in Chambers County, and then it comes into southern Randolph County, the complete story will. Just across the Chambers County line here, as you go down Highway 77, you come to a little town called Abanda. And many years ago, there was a very large sawmill in Abanda. I believe the sawmill at the time was called Bailey Sawmill. Later on, whenever Mr. John Bailey, retired, he turned it over to his three sons. And I believe after that, it was called Bailey Brothers Sawmill. And a lot of people carried pulpwood. That's what was cut back in those days when this sawmill was running, was pulpwood. It wasn't cut in a trailer log lengths like it is now. It was cut in, I don't know, 6, 8, or maybe 9 feet length. I remember one summer that I worked with a pulpwood crew, and I never knew exactly how long logs were. I had other things to do besides run a chainsaw, which I was kind of glad of, because in hot weather running a chainsaw is a lot of hard work. Working at a sawmill is a lot of hard work, and you may have heard Mel Tillis sing the song Sawmill. It's kind of an uplifted, fast song about, I guess he enjoyed working at the sawmill. If he had actually worked at one, he probably wouldn't have liked it too well. But anyway, you might want to listen to that sometime. Sawmill by Mel Tillis. But anyway, getting on back to what I'm talking about, I do get sidetracked a lot, but I do like to do as much information on the background and just kind of get the setting going as I possibly can. Anyway, there was a man, a black man back in those days that worked at Bailey's Sawmill. I don't know what his name was. I never heard his real name. I may have, but over the years, forgotten it. First time I heard this story, me and my granddad went down to Mr. John Bailey's house. He had not long had his house built, and me and my granddad walked down there one day because he and Mr. Bailey had always been good friends. As I'm good friends with all of the Baileys, of course, a lot of the Bailey girls. Now, names have changed now that I went to school with, but they were always very nice to me. I hope I was always very nice to them. Just some very nice people around where I live. But anyway, he and I went down there one afternoon, and they just, as old men did, and as I do now with other men my age, we kind of reminisce of old times in the past and that type of stuff. I don't know what makes my nose itch when I get on camera, but I guess it's some kind of beam coming out of there or something. It makes my nose itch. Anyway, we walked down there one afternoon, and they were just talking about old times and that type of stuff. And I remember them talking about this black man that worked at Bailey's sawmill. Kind of had an unusual nickname. Slewfoot was what he was called. And since I heard this story from my granddad and Mr. Bailey, I've heard it from other people over my life. Nobody recent, because almost all of those people that were that age have passed away now. But anyway, Slewfoot worked at Bailey Sawmill in Abanda. As I said, I'm trying to keep up with all my facts and trying to keep them straight. I may be repeating a little bit of stuff. But anyway, he got the name Slewfoot because he had very large feet. I forgot exactly how large they said it was. Seemed like he wore a 14, 15, or a 16 boot. But anyway, that will kind of come into play as we go along with this story. And what I'm going to do to tell you this story is I want to go out on location. It happened near an old cemetery just across the Chambers-Randolph County line as he was walking home one afternoon. And that's something else that was just pretty much common back in the 40s and 50s. Most people didn't have automobiles and cars. They just couldn't afford them back in the 40s anyway. And a lot of people had to walk back and forth to work. I can remember my grandmother at the shirt factory that I talked about. She worked there many, many years ago. And I can remember her telling that on many occasions she had to walk to work. But anyway, that was just something that was done down here in the South. A lot of walking had to be done because, as I said, people in those days just couldn't afford automobiles and that type of stuff. But anyway, that's what happened to Slewfoot. He walked back and forth to work almost every day. The thing about it is when he went to work every morning, it was around daylight, or maybe just a little bit before or after daylight, depending, I guess, on the time of year. And they put in a full day down at the sawmill, as all sawmills always did back in those days, I guess. And when he returned home every evening, it was about dusk or maybe a little after dark sometimes. Maybe they worked till dark down there. And then sometimes as he walked along past this old cemetery, it was already dark or beginning to get dark, as it was this afternoon. It was just about dusty dark when shadows became bigger and larger and more haunted looking, I guess, as you walked along a cemetery. Alrighty, and I'll kind of tell you a little bit about what I was told, the way that Slewfoot looked, so you'll kind of have an idea of what he does look like while we're telling the story in just a few minutes. Anyway, Slewfoot dressed just about like everybody else down here in the South did at this particular time. He had on a well-worn, faded-out pair of overalls. They were blue, but they had some wear and they had some fading in them from work and use, that type of stuff. And Slewfoot usually wore a brown shirt or a tan shirt, kind of like a khaki work shirt was what he normally wore, along with some well-worn lace-up boots. So this is the kind of guy that you would imagine as we get into the story. Now the thing also about Slewfoot, he does have pretty large feet, but they kind of go along with his size. He's a very tall, slender black man. He is about 6'4" to 6'6". So anyway, that will kind of give you an idea of what Slewfoot looks like. And more than likely, I'm sure he had on some type of old worn out hat too, because everybody had to wear a hat back in the summer in the South to keep the sun off of you as much as they could. And in the wintertime, you wore it to keep warm. Just kind of like pretty much what I do. But anyway, now you kind of know what Slewfoot looks like. So let's get on with our story. Okay, now I just want to kind of let you know where we're at. We're down here in Abanda, and the traffic's kind of picked up now that I pulled over. Everybody's wondering what about this Alabama adventure is about. Anyway, it's about Slewfoot, and what I wanted to come to Abanda. Let me show you a little bit about Abanda real quick. This is a log truck that comes through Abanda regularly. Follows me around. Afraid I may say something about all the logs being cut in Alabama, but I don't care. Go on and cut them all. I just want to be around whenever they fight over that last tree. That's what I want to see. But anyway, these are the two churches. This is the railroad down at Abanda, so you'll kind of have an idea where it is. This particular section of land is the Pete Turnham Parkway. There are the two churches you'll see, and here's an old store building that was in business for many, many years down here. And what I came to show you was this particular building right out here is what's the remains of Bailey Sawmill. And this little house right behind the store right here was the office where you stopped and weighed your pulpwood truck and that type of stuff. And of course there was a railroad spur that came in to where they loaded the pulpwood on the railroad cars and took it to the paper mill back in those days. Now they just haul it up and down the road to the paper mill, but they used to do it all, I believe, on the railroad. But that right out there is the sawmill that where Slewfoot worked many, many years ago. I'm sure the building changed from the time he's worked down there, but anyway, that's what's left of it now. If you come to Abanda, you'll kind of know what you're looking for. Let me swing back around, and as I said, there's the railroad track. Here's another old building. There were several buildings right in there that been rotted down and torn down, and right there is one of the fire departments. There's a new fire department here in Abanda right up the road, but I want to give you all this history so you'll kind of have an idea of the place we're talking about. But this is where Slewfoot worked, and I'm sure this road was probably dirt in those days, and he walked right up there where that other car is coming to keep a close eye on us. That's where he worked at in the days of this story that we're going to be telling you about. Okay, now we were down at the Abanda doing a little filming, so I cut that kind of short a while ago. I scared some people down there. I got out with a camera and walking around making pictures of the town. I sort of got them upset about what I was doing down there. Well, if you wasn't doing something illegal, you wouldn't have to worry about what people are doing with a camera. But anyway, let me show you this right here and we'll get on with the video. This is a shot of the intersection I was telling you about in the video, or will be telling you about. There goes Walmart. Low prices every day. Yeah, right. You can beat those prices just about anywhere now. And anyway, yep, I got you. Glad to have you as a guest on the show tonight. But anyway, right here's the intersection I'll be telling you about, or have mentioned earlier. As I said, I can't keep up with what all I'm talking about. Having to make little sarcastic comments and everything like this. But this right over here is Highway 77 that goes down to Abanda, where we frightened a lot of people that are probably doing something illegal, or they wouldn't be worried about what somebody pulls off the side of the road and pulls the camera out for. And I'm in the middle of the road, and here comes another car. Let me get off over here. What I want to do is walk right on up here to show you. Yeah, I got you. Glad to have you as a guest too. Anyway, this is the little road that we'll be talking about where Slewfoot came walking down. Let's go install somebody a TV, a telephone, internet service. But anyway, this is the little dirt road down through here that's going to go past a little cemetery. And probably in the days that I'm going to be telling you about this story, probably the road all the way to Abanda was probably dirt back in those days. I'm not sure when Highway 77 was paved. But anyway, we'll do another video on that someday. Alrighty, now just previously we were right up here at the top of the hill. Let me show you that. Right up there where you can see that little bit of gray, that's Highway 22 and the intersection of 77 right there. What it was, Slewfoot worked down there at Bailey's Sawmill, and he had to walk home every afternoon, as I said earlier. And on this particular afternoon, it was almost dark. It was almost dark as he walked along the edge of these woods down this particular road. And he came walking down the hill, as he always did. And right over here, you can't hardly see it now. You can't hardly tell it because it's been let go and grow up cemetery. You can probably hear some thunder. Of course, it's got to start raining and coming up a cloud when I start trying to do a video. But anyway, this is the old Liberty West Cemetery, also known as Luana Cemetery. But what it's officially called is the Liberty West Cemetery. And there's a sign right up here that actually says that, but I'm not going to get out there and try to video that monument sign. But there are probably rattlesnakes in here as big as that tree right up there. But anyway, let me try to get back to the story now that I've got good and aggravated this afternoon. What it was, Slewfoot came walking down the road as he always did, and he was walking at a pretty normal pace coming down through here. And as he neared the cemetery, he saw something white over against the edge of the woods. Now, over against the edge of the woods right over there kind of in this area right down here from the best I remember. It was where it was, and I'll tell you why I remember in just a little bit. But anyway, as he came walking down about where that orange sign is right now, as usual, he glanced across the cemetery, and as I said, in this particular area, right along in here, he saw something white, something large and something white. And the first thing he thought it was a ghost or a spirit had come up out of one of the graves and might get after him. But now Slewfoot was the type of person that always carried a pistol with him. He always carried a .38 police special with him in his overalls bib pocket or in one of his hip pockets all the time. So anyway, we may have to cut this short because I think I can hear the rain coming. But anyway, we may have to go on back to the studio to finish it. As he came walking down through here, he saw this thing up against the woods. As I have said earlier, it was beginning to get dark. Just keep that in mind. He couldn't make out real well what this thing was, only that it was about 5 feet tall and it was solid white. So the first thing Slewfoot does is he stops in the road right back up here and he yells at this thing, "Who is that?" Of course, nothing happened. Haint or whatever. That's what. Now, haints is what old people used to call spirits that would get after you and chase you and that type of stuff. There was a ghost, which they didn't worry too much about ghosts. That was in haunted houses. But haint supposedly actually chased you, caused you harm, or tried to, or caused you to harm yourself, I guess is what it was. He hollered at this thing, but it didn't answer back. So he took a few more steps, and he was beginning to get a little nervous and this type of stuff. And he hollered again. He said, "I said, hey, who are you?" And of course, this thing didn't say anything. It just kept standing right where it was. It did not move. Slewfoot began to get a little nervous, and he started sweating, and his hands began to shake. And once again, he hollered, "Speak, Haint." That was one of his phrases that was in the original story that somebody told me. "Speak, Hank. Speak, Haint." Of course, this thing didn't speak, and he done got nervous, and he put his hand down on his pistol in his pocket, and he pulled a pistol out on this thing. And he told it in a very loud voice, "Either speak or I'm going to shoot you." Of course, this thing still hadn't moved, still hadn't said a word, still right in the same position it was. All right, he pulls his pistol out, which is a .38 special. All right, he aims at it. He said, "I'm not going to tell you again to speak. Who are you and what do you want?" I guess one of the first things he thought was it could be somebody up against the woods trying to hide and we're going to rob him or kill him or something like that. But anyway, this thing still hadn't moved. So with his hands kind of shaking, he pulled a pistol out and he cocked the hammer back and he drew a bead right dead center of it, just right below where he thought the head of this thing would be. And one more time he said, "Either speak and tell me who you are and what you want, or I'm going to shoot." And about time he said that, he shot. All right. Well, back in those days, they didn't have smokeless powder. The powder in guns was old black powder, and it made a big puff of smoke when it came out the barrel. And that's what happened this afternoon. And he had to wait just a few moments for the smoke to kind of clear to where he could see his target over there. Anyway, when the smoke kind of cleared, whatever this thing was is still standing there. It hadn't hit the ground. It hadn't turned around and run or anything. It's still standing right where he shot. So he cocks the gun again and he shoots 5 more times at this thing. Okay, then when all of that smoke had cleared, the thing was still standing there. Still hadn't dropped, still hadn't run. So he just rears back with his gun and throws his gun at it. And then he kind of starts screaming like Joe Cocker whenever he's singing. Y'all know how you heard Joe Cocker whenever he, wow! That's the kind of way that Slewfoot went to screaming whenever he'd shot this thing 6 times and knew he'd hit it at least once or twice. Then he even threw the gun at it and it was still standing there looking at him. So what he does, he goes into Joe Cocker mode, screaming, "Wow!" Wow! And he takes out running down through these woods right here. And he runs all the way home, non-stop, which is about another 1.5 miles, maybe a total of 2 miles from here. I said earlier it was probably about 2 miles from the sawmill up the road there. It's probably about 2 miles to the cemetery here, and it's probably about another 2 miles on up to his house where he lived. But anyway, he's out through the woods screaming and running, and I'm sure if that had happened today, I'd be getting reports that somebody had heard a Bigfoot screaming over here around Liberty Cemetery. But anyway, he goes running on home. And when he gets to his house, they live in a house similar to this one I'm going to show you. This is not the exact house that they lived in. Just kind of similar to what people lived in back in the 40s, early 50s down here in the South. Anyway, he goes runs up on the front porch and just busts through the front door, knocked the front door off the hinges, as a matter of fact, or tore the hinges out of the door facing. Anyway, his wife said that the door landed flat in the living room as he came running in and fell on the floor beside or on top of the door or beside it. Now his wife comes running into the room. She don't know what's going on. She hears him come running up through the woods screaming and hollering, and then he comes across the porch, is stomping and running, and hits the door and knocks the door in, busts the glass out of the door and everything else. But anyway, he thought this Haint was after him, and he was doing all he could to get away from it. And he's laying there on the floor, and his wife comes in there and asks him what's happened, what's going on. And he relates to her what I've just told you about seeing this Haint down here in the cemetery, and he shot it 6 times, and this thing was still standing there, so he decided it was time to go, and that's what he did. Anyway, whenever he tells his wife that, she just busts out laughing, just rears back, mouth wide open, just claps her hands a time or two, just laughing, stomping her feet, having the biggest time. And Slewfoot is laying there on the floor. What's wrong with you? This thing like to got me. It could have killed me. You'll never seen me again. She just kept laughing for a little while, and anyway, she had to go get something to drink or some water or something. And when she finally got to where she could talk over her laughing spell at what Slewfoot had told her had happened, she said, "That's what you get for going out last Saturday night, drinking and playing poker all night and not going to church." And Slewfoot's trying to get up. He's still laying on the floor, and he's trying to get up. And he said, "You mean the Lord sent a Haint after me for not going to church one Sunday?" And she said, "No." She said, "It was announced in church Sunday that there was going to be a new headstone monument put up in the cemetery down there Monday morning." And she said, "That's what you saw." And come to find out, that was what Slewfoot saw that he thought was a Haint. Because the next morning he was late for work. Him and a couple of friends came down to where he had his encounter that afternoon or that evening before with this Haint or tombstone or whatever it was. And sure enough, right out there where he saw it, whenever they came walking up, there was something white. And as they got up close to it, it was a brand new tombstone that some family had finally afforded to put over, I believe, their mother and father's grave down here. And Slewfoot had actually shot this new Silicaga marble monument 6 times, and they found all 6 bullet impressions in the tombstone, as well as his pistol laying at the base of it. Well, okay, that was the story of Slewfoot, and one Monday afternoon as he encountered the shadow regions. And I don't think he ever forgot it the rest of his life. I'm certain that he didn't. A lot of other people didn't that has told me about it. Most of those people have passed on now, unfortunately. And it's just a story that I didn't want particularly lost, but I thought I would bring it out to you. There's a little bit more I need to tell you about this story, though. Well, there's a lot that happened to me yesterday. I guess Slewfoot, on this particular Monday, when he encountered the Haint over in the Liberty West Cemetery, and I know there is a Liberty East and a Liberty West church and cemetery here in Randolph County. Now, the Liberty West church is gone, but I'm going to show you an old picture of the Liberty West church that I managed to get a copy of several years ago, and have a story I could tell you on that. I don't know where to or not. I'll think about it before I do, but then tell you about this old church. It was one of the first churches built in the county, or so I heard. But anyway, what I do want to tell you about the rest of this story with Slewfoot and his Haint was me and my father and my grandfather went over there one afternoon to this cemetery, because my granddad had told me that you could actually still see the bullet marks on this particular tombstone. So anyway, we all got in the truck one afternoon and rode over to the cemetery, and I actually saw and counted those 6 bullet impressions or wounds or whatever you want to call it in that tombstone many years ago. And over my life, I rode by there several times and looked at it and counted them. But then back in the I guess around the late 80s or early 1990s, somebody decided they would do a lot of vandalism in this particular cemetery. And I'll have to tell you a little bit about that in a minute, because I sure want to tell that. But anyway, I don't know why they vandalized the cemetery, other than just having something to do, or maybe it's a part of history, like a lot of other history here in this country now, that needs to be destroyed. And I guess that's what they decided. They just get a head start on it. But anyway, the old tombstone was over there, and it was about 5 feet tall, best I remember. And somebody, as I said, went over there one night, done a lot of vandalism in the cemetery, and it looked like they took a sledgehammer or something and would hit this tombstone and knock pieces of it off. And it was in very small pieces the last time I saw it. I actually did one afternoon. They were doing some restoration, or so-called restoration, to the cemetery, and I'll have to tell you about that sometime. And I got over there with this old tombstone and actually put it back together. And but I didn't have any glue or anything. I didn't know if all the pieces were there. But this was back in the early 1990s. All the pieces were there. Then they were just laying on the ground, and I put them back together. But anyway, the guy that was over the restoration of the cemetery, that made a killing off of it, taking up money to restore this cemetery, and you can see what kind of condition it's in now. Of course, this guy finally died, and with people that I don't particularly care for, I won't say anything bad about him. But anyway, he did a lot of damage to this cemetery in his so-called restoration. Now, in his restoration of the cemetery over there, he pulled the markers off a lot of graves. A lot of graves were only marked with large rocks, because that was all people could use back then. They couldn't afford markers and that type of stuff, as I said earlier in the video. But he lost a lot of graves over there by pulling these rocks off of the graves that were actually marked. As a matter of fact, back in early 1970s, Southern Union College went over there and mapped out this cemetery with all the graves and where they were and the dimensions and all the names they could find on them. And I have a copy of that map here somewhere. I would just have to find it. But I would like to see the old cemetery put back like it was. In the meantime, this guy got with 2 or 3 people that claimed, now I don't know where they were or not, they claimed to be with an organization called something like the Sons of the Confederacy, or Sons of Confederate Soldiers, or the Sons of Confederate Veterans, something like that. That may not have been exactly what it was, but it was something similar. And they decided they wanted to make this a Confederate military cemetery, which it is not. It is a civilian public cemetery to the community at the time the cemetery was in use and everything. Cemetery hadn't been used in many years, and I don't feel like it should be torn apart or desecrated as it was. I think it should be left alone as in original state to be preserved for future generations, if anybody cares about that thing in the future. But anyway, that was just one of the things that happened over there. There's a lot of things I could tell you about the cemetery over there. At this particular time, when they were destroying graves and destroying the cemeteries, I would say, I had a magazine. It was something Alabama something. I don't remember the exact title of the magazine. I remember throwing it away here a while back because it was absolutely useless. But anyway, it did have a couple of pretty good articles in there, and it had an ad on the back page that said something about vandalized cemeteries or desecrated cemeteries. If you know of one, to please contact them. They might, I guess they might try to put it back together or try to find out who did it or whatever. So it had an address and a phone number where you could call some office in Montgomery. I don't remember the name. It was something like Alabama Historical Commission, Alabama Historical Association, or Alabama Historical Society, something like that. Anyway, I called them, and whenever I did and told them about what was going on with the cemetery, the 2 morons I talked to just pretty much laughed about it. They just really didn't care, you could tell. Go over there and get them some pictures, get them a video down there, and they would be up there to check the cemetery out, which I did. I went over and made pictures, made a video of it, and sent it to whatever this agency was that was advertised in this magazine. Never heard anything out of them. Really didn't expect to after I talked to them on the phone. They could manage to put a sentence together every once in a while, but they were like a lot of people. They were just had a job. They had a check coming in. They didn't want to do anything else except draw a check monthly or however often they got paid. Just kind of aggravating that you try to do what's within the law, and you hate to see things like this torn up. And when they do have an agency that you can contact about something like that, and you do, and you talk to, like I said, morons. But anyway, that's just pretty much the way things run sometimes. Well, now, I guess on that day that Slewfoot encountered his Haint, it was a Monday. And it sounded like he had a Monday all day long. I had a Monday all day long yesterday, too. Guess that's why I'm not in one of the greatest moods I'd ever been in. But yesterday, as I was doing this video, if you will notice, when I was standing at the intersection of Highway 22 and 77, getting the video going, that this white SUV came by, and it followed me around the biggest part of the afternoon yesterday. And then I guess it probably ran out of gas or whatever, and I had a gray car to harass me and follow me a little bit and to pull into one of the intersections and held me there for a few moments. Now, were they taking a picture of me or what? If you need a picture, I'll be glad to sell you one. I might even let you get by me and make one by me. It just really doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't have an idea of why they were following me around. But anyway, this white SUV went down to the first driveway and turned around and came back to the top of the hill as I was putting the camera and stuff back in the car. Then I headed on back into town, and the SUV had gone down the road, and it was sitting in the driveway waiting on me as I went by. It pulled out behind me again and followed me all over town for about 15 to 20 minutes, I guess, till maybe they ran out of gas. And that's when they had to call the gray car. But I just wanted to let whoever was following me know that, yeah, they were doing their job yesterday. Anyway, with some of the investigations and stuff have done over the years, have been followed, have been harassed. I just wanted to tell you that's why I was sort of aggravated. Well, I really wasn't aggravated. I was kind of amused that somebody wants to follow me around that's got absolutely nothing else in life to do but to follow me. Boy, don't you wish you had a life. All right, and before we close this video on out this afternoon, I have someone that I want to introduce you to. I know you saw her a little bit earlier in the video whenever she helped me get this thing going this afternoon. Her name is Carol. She is a very talented artist. And I walked into her shop this afternoon a little after lunch, just out of the blue. And, of course, she was working on another painting this afternoon when I went in. And I asked her, did she have time to help get this video started, that I would like to get her on. She and I have talked a while back about possibly getting her on here and helping do some of the Alabama adventures. And she very nicely agreed to do so. And so this afternoon I just caught her by surprise. But I do want you to look at some of her artwork just real quick. This particular painting that she has hanging on her wall, just as you walk in the door. This is a picture of Marilyn Monroe, and it is a very, very good likeness. She is a very talented artist. As a matter of fact, she was working on a painting when I walked in this afternoon and asked her to help, and she just put down what she was doing with her painting up there and took time to help me. So if all of you will, I would very much appreciate you making her feel welcome to the Alabama Adventures. But anyway, I'm going to bring the video on to a close. Kind of aggravated a little bit, as you can probably tell this afternoon. But anyway, I've got a lot of videos that we're working on. And at one place I said Hank. I'm working on a video about a man named Hank. And I meant Haint. But anyway, that was one of my mistakes, one of my bloopers. We'll just leave that in there. But anyway, we have a lot of videos that we're working on. We have shadow regions. We have some paranormal stuff. We have some history and that type of stuff. That's similar to this video here. Maybe we worked in a little bit of history and some shadow regions all into one video. But anyway, I do appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll shut up and quit griping about what's going on right now. But anyway, I guess as I always do, better say hello to my granddaughter Madison. I also want to tell you that the Alabama Bigfoot Society is run completely out of pocket. And if you're in a position where you can and where you would like to make a donation, that would be very much appreciated. I spend it all on gas and batteries most of the time. Anyway, if you like this video, give us a like. If you don't like it, give us a like. If you do like what we're doing down here, I want you to subscribe to the channel so you'll catch all the videos we do. And now, with all that being said, I guess I'll see you on the next Alabama adventure. And Chico and I will see you on down the road.